At the end of his third missionary journey, Paul traveled from Corinth to Philippi and sailed to Caesarea. From there, he went up to Jerusalem. Acts 21 verse 17 says, "When we had come to Jerusalem, the brothers received us gladly. On the following day, Paul went in with us to James, and all the elders were present. After greeting them, he related one by one the things that God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. And when they heard it, they glorified God. And they said to him, 'You see, brother, how many thousands there are among the Jews of those who have believed. They are all zealous for the law, and they have been told about you that you teach all the Jews who are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, telling them not to circumcise their children or walk according to our customs. What then is to be done? They will certainly hear that you have come.'" This passage tells us several important facts about the early Christian church. First, despite decades of severe persecution, there were still thousands of Jewish Christians in the church in the mid-first century. Some scholars estimate that there may have been as many as 10,000 Jewish Christians based on evidence in the New Testament. Second, these Jewish Christians were still observing the Mosaic law decades after the Christian church began. Jesus expected his disciples to teach and obey the law of Moses, and the apostles affirmed the authority of the Torah throughout the New Testament. Third, there was a widespread rumor in the church that Paul was telling the Jews in the diaspora to abandon circumcision and the Torah, which threatened the peace and unity of the church. However, the leaders of the Jerusalem church had a plan to resolve this situation. In Acts 21, verse 23, they said, "Do therefore what we tell you. We have 4 men who are under a vow. Take these men and purify yourself along with them and pay their expenses, so that they may shave their heads. Thus all will know that there is nothing in what they have been told about you, but that you yourself also live in observance of the law. But as for the Gentiles who have believed, we have sent a letter with our judgment that they should abstain from what has been sacrificed to idols, and from blood, and from what has been strangled, and from sexual immorality." Then Paul took the men, and the next day he purified himself along with them and went into the temple, giving notice when the days of purification would be fulfilled, and the offering presented for each one of them. This passage contains some additional facts about the early Christian church. First, Jewish Christians in Jerusalem continued to participate in the temple rituals as their ancestors had done. It appears that these 4 men were completing a Nazirite vow as described in Numbers 6. Luke implies that several years earlier, Paul had also kept a Nazirite vow. Acts 18 verse 18 says, "After this, Paul stayed many days longer, and then took leave of the brothers and set sail for Syria, and with him Priscilla and Aquila. At Cenchrea he had cut his hair, for he was under a vow." This may explain why the leaders in Jerusalem asked Paul to accompany these 4 men as they concluded their Nazirite vow. Second, the leaders of the Jerusalem church clearly stated that the rumor about Paul was false. Paul was a Torah-observant Jew, just like Jesus and the other apostles. This is a major problem for antinomian theologians who continue to spread the lie that the New Covenant abolished the law of Moses. Third, there was no division or disagreement between Paul and James concerning Gentile Christians. The Jerusalem Council had agreed with Paul that Gentiles did not have to be circumcised to be saved. They had issued a letter to the church listing several basic Torah commandments that Gentiles had to follow to be admitted into church fellowship. James had proposed this letter, and he was going to stand by this decision in Paul's defense. The Torah is God's basic definition of right and wrong for all humanity. Jesus included the Mosaic Law in the New Covenant, and the apostles affirmed the authority of the Torah throughout the New Testament. Many antinomian heretics today continue to spread the ancient lie that Paul abolished the law of Moses. But Paul was a Torah-observant Jew who taught Jewish and Gentile Christians to keep God's law.